Alright, so it has been a few days since I filmed that last clip, and the reason why it took so long to film again is because I wanted to give myself some time to digest the experience. I think that I was experiencing a little bit of shock when I first got here, just on the fact that I don't speak the language or anything, and things are so different. But I wanted to take some time to talk about some of the differences that I've noticed, aside from, of course, the language barrier, with being in Valencia and Europe as a whole. Because I think that a lot of the things that I've noticed apply to a good portion of at least Western Europe, right? So the first thing that I noticed when I got out here, compared to America at least, is the infrastructure. The infrastructure out here is a lot better than most places that I've been to in America. Now mind you, I've been to New York City, I've been to California, LA, I've been to Texas, Dallas, Houston, Austin. I've been to a lot of different places in America, and I haven't seen a place yet at this point that was as efficient as it is out here, right? And what do I mean by that? First of all, the density of the place. This place has around 700,000 people, give or take, right? Which is comparable to a place like maybe Denver or Seattle, or even Fort Worth, Texas. Place like that, mid-sized US city. And this place right here, if you look around, you see that it's absolutely bustling with life. There's people walking on the streets, people going out and about, walking, using public transportation, riding their bikes, things like that. You don't really see stuff like that in a city of this size in America. In order to see something like this, you have to go to a place like New York, or you have to go to a place that is in the city center. Okay, so you have to go somewhere downtown, maybe downtown Dallas or downtown LA, somewhere like that. But here, I'm not even in the city center. I'm just in this random little neighborhood. You guys can see the infrastructure and the roads and everything are all pristine. Okay, look at the roads. There's no potholes, no nothing. Now mind you, I haven't driven a car out here, and I don't think I need to, because the bike situation is so much better. That's another aspect of the infrastructure which I found to be absolutely astounding coming from America, where in most places you need a car. You can't get around via bicycle. Out here, you really genuinely do not need a car. And I think that people need to understand that, because if you look at the prices in Europe, especially for housing, you would think it costs more out here. But I feel like in most cases it doesn't, because you don't need a car. Don't underestimate how much a car costs. For those of you who aren't making car payments, or if you've never had a car, your parents pay for your car, whatever, car payment, car insurance, gasoline, all of these different things, they add up very, very quickly, right? So being able to just ride your bike around everywhere or take public transportation can save you hundreds of dollars every single month, which of course over time adds up to thousands of dollars every single month. And as you guys can see, they have the bike lanes right here, which me and my girlfriend have been making extensive use of. My girlfriend being from the Netherlands, she's used to that. To her, this is probably a downgrade compared to where she's from. But of course, coming from Dallas and Los Angeles, we don't really have anything like this, at least not to this extent. Or like I said, you have to go downtown to get it. And honestly, I'm just walking randomly right now because I want to give you guys a good sense of the architecture. That's another aspect of the infrastructure, is the architecture. It's definitely a lot older out here, but a lot of it seems like it's more well kept than certain places in the US. And of course, I'm comparing apples to oranges because Europe in general is a lot older than America, but for these buildings, like for example, that building right there, you can tell that building is probably few hundred years old at least, maybe even more. But look at how well kept it is versus certain places in the US where they were maybe built in 1980, give or take, 1980, 1970, and they're not anywhere near as well kept as a building like that. And I'm not really sure why that is. I mean, there's a plethora of different reasons that could be, but I think generally speaking, the architecture or the infrastructure in Europe, or at least in Valencia, Spain, I can't speak for all of Europe, but out here in Valencia, Spain, is definitely more of a priority. It seems like it's much more of a priority than it is in a lot of other places in America, at the very least. Now, another thing that I noticed out here, and this was just immediate, as soon as I went out shopping, was the prices. The price of commodities, okay, especially groceries, way cheaper. I'm talking about I'm able to feed me and my girlfriend, get groceries for the both of us, and spend less money than I typically spend for myself in America. Now mind you, I live in California, so of course that adds up quickly. You know, California is one of the most expensive places to be in America, but even coming from Dallas, I bought my own groceries when I lived in the apartment, and it wasn't uncommon for me to spend upwards of $100 in a week for just myself. That would be borderline impossible for me to do out here unless I just specifically tried to do that. Now, I don't know why the groceries out here are so much cheaper. To these people, it might be expensive, I don't know. It just depends on where you come from, but I know in America, those prices are absolutely just violating. It hurts. Every time you go and buy groceries, it hurts. But out here, I don't even think about it. I don't even look at the price out here because your money goes so much further. Because like I said, for one, you don't need a car, and two, the groceries are so much cheaper. So just those two things alone go a very long way in saving you a lot of money, which you can then use for other experiences. But even with that being said, there's a lot of free things to do out here. A lot of public parks, well-maintained public parks at that. I'm talking about there's no tent encampments or anything like that, needles on the ground, people peeing on the ground and all that stuff that you would see in a place like LA or maybe San Francisco, New York, whatever. No, these are well-maintained public spaces, right? And I'm not saying that you can't find that in the US, but the combination of the maintenance, the infrastructure, and then the general density of this place, I have yet to see anything like this in my 22 years of living until I got here to Valencia. Now, the reason why I speak in generalities as far as Europe goes, granted my sample size is very small. I have Valencia as well as certain places in the Netherlands that my girlfriend has been to as my reference points. But the reason why I speak in generalities is because a lot of the things that I've noticed about Valencia or about just this general area are European in nature. And what I mean by that is a lot of these things are primarily predicated on the way that Europeans view life, the way that they perceive life, right? They tend to value these things more than we as Americans do, because in America, a lot of times we value space. We value space, privacy. We want the big house, the big yard, the nice cars, all of that. Out here, I get the sense that these people don't really care about that. I don't think I've actually seen a house since I got out here. All apartments, everywhere. I have not seen a proper single family home, which in America, to go multiple city blocks and not see any houses, that's crazy. Unless you live in a place like New York or something like that. But out here, as you guys can see, it's just all apartments. And a lot of it is residential on the top, and then you have commercial on the bottom, which we do have in America, just not to this extent. And I do think that making more extensive use of this sort of setup would make things a lot more efficient. It'd make places much more walkable, which would save us more money. It would make things much easier to navigate, especially in a big city like LA or New York. Granted, New York, like I said, has a lot of these benefits, but you're paying out the ass for rent. You're paying $3,000, $4,000 a month for a studio apartment, and nobody wants to pay that. Out here, I'm not saying that the apartments are cheap, but for what you pay for everything else, I feel like you get it back in the back end. If you look at the big picture, I feel like you would spend less money here. As a matter of fact, I would probably spend less money here if I were to get an apartment, maybe a room even, just rent out a room and just live here instead of living in my car in California, right? Because my girlfriend, I talked to her about this. She told me that the rent that she's paying on her room is the exact same as my car payment. except she doesn't have to pay car insurance or anything like that. And then on top of that, she can just get around with the bicycle system. And out here in Valencia, I can't speak for the other European cities, but out here in Valencia, Spain, they have this thing called the ValenBC public bikes. This is what I've personally been using. You pay 30 euros for a 1-year subscription. 30 euros for a 1-year subscription. And then after that, they have certain rates that you pay for any ride more than 30 minutes, I believe. I think after 30 minutes, the first hour is 52 cents. I don't know what the denominations are for euros, but it's less than 1 euro. And then every hour after that is 2 euros and 8 cents, something like that. So it's definitely a lot cheaper than having a car or probably even taking public transportation. I'm saying all this to say that it's very, very cheap out here, which I think is a big part of the reason why I've seen much less economic inequality, which is the next thing that I want to talk about. Out here in Valencia, when you just look around, if you just look at everybody in any general area, and you just assume the salary that people make out here, you would assume most people probably make roughly the same amount. Granted, obviously that's not the case. That'll never be the case in any place, but you don't really see people wearing their wealth, for one, and you also don't see people subjected to the same degree of poverty that they might be subjected to in America. Living in a place like LA, you will see the top of the top and the bottom of the bottom. And what I mean by that is it's very, very common in a place like LA specifically, but really most American cities, it's very, very common to see a penthouse, okay, a really, really nice high-rise apartment, condo, whatever, and somebody has the penthouse suite, driving a Lamborghini Urus, whatever, and right outside, or maybe just a block away, you'll have a homeless encampment. That's something that I have yet to see out here. As a matter of fact, I think I've only seen maybe a handful of homeless people out here, and I think they were all the same people. Okay, they're all the same people in the same few spots. You don't see any sort of encampments or anything out here, and you also don't see people who appear, at least, to be wealthy. I'm sure that there's plenty of wealthy people out here, especially people traveling here, but you don't really see it. In LA, you know when you see somebody who's rich. You can tell when somebody's rich. Out here, you can't really tell at all. And like I said, you also can't tell, just generally speaking, what somebody's economic situation is out here, which I actually find to be very refreshing coming from America, where I won't say that that's glorified, but it's so accepted that it might as well be glorified, right? It's a byproduct of capitalism. But I think personally, it's not so much a byproduct of capitalism. I actually believe that it's a necessity for capitalism, at least in the way that America runs their system. I think that without that economic inequality, without those people living in those encampments, there can't be those people in the penthouses. It's just mathematically impossible. Whereas in a place like this, everybody eats. And also, just to touch back on the infrastructure, I noticed that there's a lot of these little dumpsters out here for public use, which is absolutely crazy to me. In America, we don't have anything like that. We have trash cans, of course, but most of the dumpsters like that, those are gonna be for commercial buildings, and they'll even have signs that say you can face fines and even imprisonment for using them, right? So they'd rather you throw trash on the ground than to use their dumpster, which is crazy to me, but just goes to show you where their heads are at, right? That they're more focused on protecting what's theirs, what they own, versus the environment, which we all own. So it's just a completely different mentality. I'm not here to say which is better or worse. I think that just from hearing me talk, you could probably read between the lines and tell which one I prefer at this point. I think that my eyes have definitely been opened quite a bit being out here. And this is why it's very, very important, especially for Americans, to get out of America. Get away from the US, okay, get away from the US, and just really explore, expand your horizons, man. Because a lot of times coming from America, we're raised to believe that America is the best country, that we're the center of the world. I got news for you. No, the fuck we're not. No, the fuck we're not. There's definitely a lot of amazing, beautiful places to see out here. Valencia, Spain being just one of them. And like I said, I'm not here to say that this is better than America or worse than America. That's for you to decide. I'm just delivering my observations. You make of those observations what you will. But to be able to walk around and see places like this, which to these people is probably just completely normal. These types of buildings, this type of architecture, it's very, very walkable. And you can see people just out and about, enjoying life. Okay, everybody out here, they're just dressed like fashion models, bro. I don't know what's going on in Europe. Ever since I got to London, once I stopped at London airport and I saw the way that everyone was dressed, I realized I gotta step my game up. I'm lagging behind. I'm absolutely lagging behind because everybody out here, they're wearing scarves and overcoats and whatnot. I don't have any of that, bro. I gotta step my game up because they're making me look like a bum, bro. Straight up. I'm talking about your average Joe. So, hey man, I'm just out here enjoying my trip in Valencia, Spain. I've only been out here a few days, but I'm definitely going to keep updating you guys as I go because this is just a completely different environment, a whole different world. Feels like I've stepped into a different planet. Also, one thing that I want to mention about people being out and about is I noticed it feels a lot safer here than any place I've been to in America. Any place of comparable size anyways. Being in America, in most public places like this, most dense urban environments, you're not gonna stay out at night. Okay, once the sun goes down around 11 p.m., 12, midnight, you're gonna wanna go back in the house. Okay, you're getting off the public streets because you never know what might happen, right? And I'm not gonna get into the whole gun control thing. That's all subjective, but nevertheless, I just feel like being out here, me and my girlfriend, okay, my sleeping schedule's been completely backwards, so a lot of times we're out past midnight and it's just us two on our bikes. And honestly, man, I haven't felt unsafe at all the whole trip. There's not been a single time where I felt unsafe being out here past midnight. I could have probably been out here by myself. And that right there provided me a lot of peace of mind, not just for myself, but for my girlfriend, because at least I know that she'll more than likely be safe walking around out here or biking around out here at nighttime, because it doesn't seem like people are necessarily trying to inflict harm on others. People aren't out here trying to rob each other because everybody's eating. And personally, like I said, it's not my place to say which is better or worse, which type of system is better or worse, but I mean, man, I will say that you definitely feel the effects of a different sort of system. I'm not gonna lie. 3-4 days in, I'm definitely considering getting that digital nomad visa and just coming out here, just moving out here and maybe even just exploring more of Europe, because look, I don't have anything against America or Americans or anything like that, but I mean, man, this is a whole different world out here and I need to see more of it. I don't think 2 weeks is enough. I need to see more of this and really continue to expand my horizons to develop more perspective, because there's definitely quite a few aspects of this society that America, or at the very least American cities, should take note of and should implement into their society, our society, I guess, because the life out here, man, the quality of life is just better. In my opinion, like I said, the quality of life is better. For the average person, for the 99%, I feel like this would provide a much better quality of life. Whereas, of course, in America, you have the top 1%. Yeah, of course, those people are probably going to flourish in a place like that versus here, because a lot of times the 1% wants to be in the 1%. They don't want to be equal with everyone because they worked harder and everything like that. I don't know, man. There's a lot of ideologies that I personally have bought into and have even propagated on this channel that I simply don't agree with anymore. I simply do not agree with anymore. And I will say, man, to be able to live in a place like that, or that, okay, everybody's out here living in these high-rise buildings, compared to living in America where you might have the high-rise, but it comes with the encampment outside. I don't know, man. Me personally, I think I know what I prefer. And if you really think about it, you probably know what you prefer too. Not saying what you should or shouldn't prefer, but you probably know. Okay, I just feel like the level of economic inequality in America, it's gotten so out of hand that the quality of life has been diminished for everyone. 99%, 1%, you can no longer shelter yourself from it anymore. You can't. The only way you can truly shelter yourself from it is to stop living your life completely. And what type of life is that?